Well, thank you, Adam, for hopping onto the interview. We're Port Global. We mentor students one-on-one to help them launch impact projects, and this series is to interview and highlight top student leaders and what they've accomplished. Yeah, just give an intro to yourself first.
All right, so I'm Adam Kogan from Southern California, only child, and I've always just had a huge interest in startup culture, entrepreneurship, finance in general. I will be going to Stanford next year. I've always been inspired by my grandpa. He's very into the stock market. I wouldn't say he's the most knowledgeable, but he definitely acts like it. So for, little me, I've always really looked up to him and been inspired by his passion for the stock market. Inspired me through the ideas of having money work for you instead of you working for money. That combined with my just love for building things, I think the startups just combined all of that together.
What were some of the things that you built since a young age?
Yeah, I would say my first business, not really a business. I had, it was in third grade, and I made a little baking company. And I had one client, which was my mom, but I'll always remember that as my first, little startup. Several years down the line, I got into the stock market, just investing the little money that I had and learning about the differences between index funds, bonds, individual stocks, ETFs. Starting in middle school, I made a company called Pidex. Have you ever heard of a tech deck?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like a little fingerboard, a miniature skateboard. And the tech decks, you buy them at like Target or some store for $5. But there's this whole community around fingerboards, which are much higher quality and use the real sort of materials from a skateboard, could sell for over $150. I converted my room into a little factory. I had a drill press, 5 3D printers running 24/7, hydraulic press, router, the works, and I would create fingerboards. I would sell them through my online shop. We sold all around the world. It was pretty cool. Just little middle school me would go with a huge bag of boxes and go to the post office, and I knew everybody there. And eventually I decided to sell the business. It was to actually one of my customers. I was just getting started with high school, and I wanted to free up some time. And then I started my financial literacy social media page called Teen Executive.
Why did you start Teen Executive? Tell us more about what that was.
Well, I started Teen Executive because at that point, I had just sold my business. I didn't really have much to do, and I really had that sort of finance bug in me. Throughout the entire time, I still had been investing, and I was so into startups, and I just had nothing else to do. So I thought, all right, what would be a good idea? I have all of this sort of soft skills and knowledge that you can't really learn in school that I've learned from these past ventures. And how can I apply that in a way that would help people? And people would come to me because they knew me as the finance guy in real life. They'd be like, yo, how can I start a business? And I thought maybe I could just make videos. I created a TikTok account and I made a couple of videos, and that's what I'd get. I'd get like 300 views over and over and over again. What I kept on doing was just refining it. Like every video would be, okay, people like this, they didn't like this. And it's kind of like a shot in the dark because I had no idea what worked and what didn't. But eventually I made my first, video that went viral. It was called How I Made $5,000 Instead of Buying a Gucci Wallet. And it was a pretty clickbaity title.
Pretty good title.
Yeah, the video was about I made $500 from the business, and I could have bought a Gucci wallet or a wallet. Instead, I invested it in Tesla stock. Tesla stock split, and then they were worth a couple $100s a share. And then if you trace it back, the $500 that I put into Tesla ended up at like 4,500 or something. And then it was just, through getting people excited about the idea of that. And that first video got, I think, 450,000 views. And then it was just, built from there.
As you started in 2021, that would have been the beginning of high school for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, even just that idea and what you're doing in the title, and like you look like a super young kid. Yeah, that's gonna get a lot of people.
Exactly. Right? My marketing strategy was being a little kid with a squeaky voice and bad acne.
Was that strategic? Did you know? Oh my God, people were.
Oh yeah, totally. Earlier on in some of my videos, so this was actually the set once I was like, at the peak of it all. But earlier on, I'd have a green screen behind me, and I'd be recording on my iPhone, and so I'd zoom in so it was even more kind of blurry. And then the background, I would put like a neon green background. People, and I'd have like a red shirt on too or something. So I did it deliberately to get people like, who is this nerd? Like, what is he doing?
What gave you the confidence to talk about these videos in that manner?
I've always been someone that's like very outgoing. So in terms of blurting out ideas, it never, to me personally, was never something that was super scary. I think it comes from my parents, who are also both two huge extroverts. Like my dad will talk to like anyone on the street and for like learn the whole life story, and that was always something that I just grew up around and thought was normal. Having that as like the standard and the baseline, really, it gave me a good foundation. In terms of like talking about finance, I still am not an expert at all, and I definitely wasn't an expert then. So I would make mistakes. I'd say things that were incorrect, and then people would comment it, like, of course, and then I'd quickly like make a video correcting myself, and I'd delete the original, use it as like an educational experience. But I definitely was not infallible.
What were some of the positive things that people said?
One thing is that a lot of people would like recognize me in real life. They'd come up to me like in different cities, even on the plane, in the grocery store. And almost every one of those interactions was overwhelmingly positive. And they'd be like, Adam, I've been watching your videos, and I actually was able to convince my parents to start me a brokerage account from your video of how to convince your parents to start your brokerage account. Or I made like, my Etsy startup, and it's actually got my first sale. People would come up to me and talk to me about how they're applying what they learned from my videos, and that like always made my day. Now it's different when I'm talking in front of a screen, but when I'm in front of like a real person, like someone my age or younger or older, any of it, for different reasons, it's just mind-blowing, and it was a beautiful thing.
What was the biggest turning point for you when you were creating that page and running it?
I think the biggest turning point was when I was able to consistently start getting viewership like in the 100,000s, because the whole thing is just a process of tweaking. Like when I got my original video, I thought, okay, I'm never gonna get a viral video again. Each video that would do well would teach me something new, right? So that one taught me about like kind of the clickbaity video like titles, but then also having substance behind it, right? And then I would tailor each video to the audience, which was also evolving. And eventually I realized like I had a good thing going, right? Every video I made would get at least 100,000 views, and it wasn't because of my follower count. It was just because of the fact that I knew what I was doing with the content creation at that point.
Walk us through your thought process when you think about video ideas and you produce it and you create it.
I'm the type of person that if I sit down and try to think of ideas, I'm not going to get anything done. For me, it's when I'm doing stuff that lets me like connect it, right? So like I'll go, skiing or something, or I'll go running or biking, and I'll just get an idea pop in my head, and I'll quickly like go to the notes app and like write that down. And then there was also people gave recommendations of what to make videos about. So that's how I'd get the ideas. And then what I'd do, I'd sit down and I would just try to naturally yap about the subject after researching it, of course, right? And once I had that, I would write it down and kind of type out a general script and make edits, put the camera in front of me, turn on the light, and just talk away. Final Cut Pro, edit it out, put on some music. I would have a video, put it to TikTok, and put a bunch of hashtags, and that would be it. But the thing about TikTok is that the follower count really is not important. Each level is just a different test of viewer engagement. If you could pass all the tests and not get your video taken down, then it can go viral.
What's the biggest thing you've taken away from building Teen Executive?
I think what it did is it taught me that the world in some ways is so much bigger and in some ways so much smaller than we realize. Having all these people on the videos, it would just be a little number on the screen, but I couldn't even realize and like imagine how it fills up different football fields. But at the same time, I could have one person that I've known, and somehow connect that. Like, for example, there's somebody that I used to work with through TikTok that's also going to Stanford, and I reconnected with him. So the world's so small in that way. I guess what that taught me to do is it taught me to not care as much about the superficial criticisms of the masses, right? People would write all of these terrible things, and I generally wasn't too affected by it because I realized this is just one random person in a huge world that has no impact on my life, and why should I care about this person? But at the same time, I realized that there's certain people that can have a singular great impact that I can connect through the platform with. So it's all about weeding through the people and figuring out who you want to have by your side and which to, not really cast away. Like, I think people say, like, don't care about what everyone else says, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there's nuance to it. You just need to figure out who you want to care about, like what they say. Yeah, I want to talk about one thing that I've learned through all of this sort of startup venture thing is that when you're making a startup, the idea is not the hardest part. And sometimes the best ideas are not the prettiest. Even something like making a little wooden toy skateboard could be wildly successful. And something that seems so much more beautiful on paper could be much harder to execute. So if you have an idea, you have something that you think will work, and then other people might look down on it, or you think that it doesn't fit within the bounds of normalcy for what you see online for startups, don't let that deter you. And determination is the most important factor for a founder.
Oh, what's something that made you crash out during high school?
The fact that people told me junior year was the hardest year. That is the biggest lie I've ever heard. Junior year is not the hardest year. Senior year was the hardest year. And senior year made me crash out. My brain was in overload for an entire year. If I could switch back to junior year, I would definitely do that in a second. So don't listen to the people that say junior year is the hardest. It's much less existentialist and like about the future. It was just, okay, I know what I need to do. I got academics, I got extracurriculars, and maybe I got standardized testing. And it's just very tangible and easy to understand what I need to do. But with college apps, it's like every word that I'm putting down into the essay is like defining my future and what even will my future look like. And the options, there's so many possibilities of where I could be going, like, and I'm very happy with what happened, but the stress of that definitely made me go crazy during high school.
All right, break down a difficult finance topic in 30 seconds. Go.
Okay, so I'm gonna be breaking down discounted cash flow. Basically, money today is worth more than money later. So it's like the time value of money. Discounted cash flow, it's also called DCF, and it's basically a way to figure out what something is really worth today by adding up all the money that it will make in the future. But shrinking it down based off of different variables like time or risk. If that total is higher than the current price, then basically you could just consider it to be like a good investment.
It's pretty solid. That was 35 seconds.
I was like trying to articulate it in a way that I was like, my brain was, I'm not used to doing that in one take.
Thinking about the future, what is your next passion project?
I am working on a passion project right now that it's coming out and then hopefully in the next few months. I'm actually working with another Stanford student on it right now. He's the co-founder, and I don't know if I can say anything about it. I don't know.
Okay.
However, I'm really excited about it and been working really hard, and I think that it has the opportunity to help a lot of people. And so stay tuned.
Looking to your near future at Stanford, what are your goals? Where do you see yourself?
My goals really are to find out what I want to do for the next 10, 15 years. I love so many different things. I love math, I love foreign language, I love economics, entrepreneurship, of course. And so I feel kind of lost right now in what I want to do. And I'm really hoping that I'll be able to find clarity, hopefully by like freshman year, and then be able to build off of that in the next couple of years. That's my main goal. If I can get out of Stanford being like, I really have this passion in this space that's going to be productive and rewarding for my future, and I know what that is and I've been working at it, then that's 4 years, 5 years well spent.